My high school nemesis is now my roommate? I reached my hand out to the table, trying to turn off what I thought was my alarm ringing. Picking up the phone, I saw it was my mom calling me instead. Groggy and still half asleep, I picked up the call. Hello? Tony, honey? A soft voice came through the phone. Did I wake you? I turned to the clock on the table. The time was 6:30 a.m. My alarm wasn't supposed to ring for another 30 minutes. Sighing softly, I replied. No, Mom, I've been up for a while. What's up? Alright, so you remember the Kaisers, right? And their son, Dion, who was a friend of yours back in high school? Mom, I'm not sure how that is important. It's been 10 years. You're right. Sorry. Well, they moved into our place just yesterday. The Kaisers? Why? I asked, the surprise evident in my voice, but still wanting the call to end quickly so I could get back to sleep. Well, they're renovating and needed a place to stay. Your father and I didn't mind taking them in, but that's not why I called you. She paused for a bit. Their son needs a place to stay for a while, and I was wondering if you'd be willing to let him stay with you, she asked tentatively. What? I exclaimed, sitting up, the sleep chased away from my system. Why can't he stay with you guys? You're already housing his parents. Let the family be complete. Anthony Emerson, we did not raise you to turn away people in need. Also, we're at full capacity here at home. So I figured it would be rational and helpful for you to let him stay at your place for a bit. Why can't he go to a hotel then? Also, what happened to his place? She sighed as though she was disappointed in him. His apartment got flooded. A lot of his things got ruined. He cannot stay in a hotel because he has to pay to fix his place. I don't see this as a problem, Tony. You and he were close friends. Mom, that was over 10 years ago. We can barely stand each other now. I don't want to live with him. There has to be another solution. I hated that I sounded like a whiny teen, but I hated Dion Kaiser very much and didn't want to endure living with him for however long that may be. Honestly, Tony, I was just calling out of courtesy and because I didn't want you to be blindsided by his arrival. He's arriving later today, and I expect you to play nice. You're both grown men and should be able to set aside whatever feud you have till he has to leave. Groaning in frustration, I reluctantly agreed. Fine, Mom. Only because I love you. Thank you. Now I'll leave you to whatever it was you were doing, she ended the call. Lying back in bed, I gazed at the ceiling, not moving but rather fuming. I was like that till my alarm rang. Getting up, I made my bed, brushed my teeth, and took a shower before having breakfast. I was feeling jittery by the time I was done. Dion was going to move in with me. I found myself wondering how long it would last before we killed each other. Choosing not to sit around waiting, I got the spare bedroom ready. Once I was done, I spent the rest of the time working. I looked up at the sound of the doorbell, glancing towards the clock. It was a few minutes past 11. I wasn't expecting him till noon. The man at the door looked nothing like the Dion I remembered. This man had grown into himself with his muscles straining against the dark green t-shirt he wore as he held his duffel bags. I looked up and found him staring down at me, a scowl on his face. Are you going to move or do I have to move you? He asked in an annoyed voice. What? I replied, shocked at his tone. Move, he said, tone firm as he barreled past me into the living room. He placed his bags on the floor and looked around as though he were in some ancient ruins. What a quaint place you've got here. Quaint? I thought incredulously. He did not just call my place quaint. Excuse me, I blurted out. I won't let you insult my home, and especially not when I'm letting you live here. Letting me? We both know your mother insisted I stay here. Nice to see you still can't say no to her, he said, smirking as he picked up his duffel bags again. Where am I sleeping? Pointing to the door to his right, I followed him, refusing to let the conversation end with him getting the last word. We both know no one can say no to her. Even if it was at her insistence, you're practically a guest here. Do not insult my home ever again. Turning, I slammed the door on him and quickly made my way to my room before he came up with another retort. Groaning into my pillow, I thought, this is what I have to put up with? I might die from all the stress. I realized then that living with Dion was probably going to lead me to an early grave. I hid in my room for the rest of the day. Yes, I hid, because I didn't want to see him. Lying in bed, I received a phone call from my mom. Mom, are you calling to check that we haven't killed each other? Can you blame me? So how was it? He moved in okay? I don't know, he's living with me. Doesn't mean I have to babysit him. Tony? Mom? No, you asked me to let him move in and I did. Don't expect anything else from me. It's okay, I understand. Just wanted to check in. You take care now. With that, she ended the phone call and I found myself feeling defeated. Exhausted from the events of the day, I fell asleep, wondering how I'd survive more days like this. Next morning, I wake up and make my way to the kitchen, still drowsy from sleep. I hear sounds from there and I'm instantly alert. I grab the lamp on the table and creep towards the kitchen, trying to remain silent, and with a loud yell, I strike at the intruder in my house. Ah! A familiar voice yells in return, and I'm now awake enough to see that the intruder was in fact Dion. Oh my god! I exclaim. I'm so sorry. What the hell is your problem? I'd forgotten I didn't live alone anymore, I replied, trying not to laugh at the silliness of the situation. I looked at him, realizing he was shirtless. His chest was bare and wet. The water dripped down all the way to his torso and between his abs before disappearing into his shorts. Clearing my throat, I asked, "What are you doing up so early anyway?" "Just finished breakfast." I was about to get dressed and leave for work before someone decided to go all ninja on me. Ignoring his last statement, I looked at the kitchen and it was an absolute mess. Plates placed around the sink right next to the dirty ones, the milk was on the counter, and the cereal box left open next to it. "I'm sorry, were you planning on leaving the kitchen like this?" I asked, horror evident in my voice. "I didn't know where stuff was," he replied, shrugging. Okay, understandable. Why didn't you put them back?" "I was about to," he said, shoving the plates into cabinets and tossing the cereal box next to them and the milk into the fridge. He left for his room and soon returned minutes later, fully dressed. "I'm off now. Also, I'd like the spare keys on the table before I return. Thanks," he said and left, leaving me alone in the kitchen. 2 months later. 2 months. I've had to endure 2 months living with who I can only call the messiest person on this planet. A position I thought my sister owned perfectly, but I was wrong. In 2 months, I've had to call the plumber twice for the kitchen because food kept getting stuck there. He refuses to do any chores and doesn't do grocery runs. I've had to go hungry some nights because when I return from work, he's eaten the leftovers I kept for myself in the fridge. I was starting to get tired and I'd had enough. Fuming, I stormed into his room only to be met with a neat bedroom. I was shell-shocked. I expected his room to be messy as he'd been making the rest of the house, but it wasn't. His room was neat and organized. "Are you kidding me?" I exclaimed as I watched him seated at his desk typing. "Do you not know how to knock?" he replied, his back to me, not turning to acknowledge my presence. "You idiot, look at me!" Sighing, he turned to me. "What? Is there a reason you can't seem to keep the rest of the house as clean as you keep your room?" "Why would I do that? It's your house, not mine." "But you live here too. I'd appreciate it if you did more work around the house, like help with the cleaning and maybe buy some groceries once in a while. Also, stop eating my fucking food!" I exclaimed. "Please, you're being so dramatic," he rolled his eyes. "I don't have to help you clean up. I'm not a maid. I don't see the point in buying groceries when you do it anyway. And also, I'm always hungry and your leftovers require the least amount of work to prepare. If you're so bothered, why don't you do something about it?" His audacity shocked me. How fucking dare he? Oh, so I'm the maid and the errand boy and the live-in cook. Even though you don't pay rent due to your circumstances, I thought you'd be grateful enough that you'd want to help around the house. But I see I've indulged you too much. You want me to do something about it? Fine, I will. I turned around and went to my room, leaving the door open behind me. Once I got to my room, I picked up my phone and dialed my mother. She answered on the second ring. "Hey honey, everything okay?" "No. Why didn't you tell me I'd be living with a big baby?" "What do you mean?" she said as she laughed. "It's not funny, Mom. He does nothing and leeches off of me. When is he leaving?" "Oh, honey, I don't know how to tell you this, but it doesn't seem like he'll be leaving anytime soon," she said softly. "Why not? Why do I still have to put up with this man-child any longer?" "Well, his parents informed me that the plumbing accident destroyed a lot more of the house than they initially thought. Apparently, when the plumbers got to work, they noticed the foundation was sagging, and they have to fix that first, which is gonna take a lot of time." "Like how much time?" I asked, dreading her reply. "About a year." "A year? It's only been 2 months, Mom, and I want to kill him already." "Oh, stop. You're not actually going to kill him." I sure as hell am considering it. I sighed. Is there really nowhere else he can stay? No, honey, I'm sorry. All right, then. Bye, Mom. I ended the call. Holding the phone in my hand, I looked around my room and was struck with inspiration. Smiling wickedly, I thought, he wants me to do something about it? All right, then. 1 week later. During this time, I had stopped doing things around the house. Except general cleaning, of course. I wasn't that crazy. I'd stopped buying groceries for the house. Instead, I bought for myself and also purchased a mini fridge, which I kept in my room and used instead to store things. I stopped doing dishes. I took some out for myself and washed those instead, and since I had my own fridge, all the food I cooked was stored there instead. It took him 3 days to notice that things were finished and not replaced, that the plates were still in the sink and no food in the fridge anymore. I waited to see how long before he cracked. It took him a week. All right, you win. Please stop. Those were his words to me as I returned from work. He was sitting on the sofa, his face twisted in defeat. Smiling triumphantly, I sat beside him. So, Mom says you're still here for the rest of the year, I began. Yeah, the house still needs some work. We're gonna need some ground rules concerning chores and our overall treatment of each other. You're right. Also, I apologize for my behavior earlier. I only did that to annoy you, he replied sheepishly. Annoy me? Why? Because I wanted to, and I wanted to see how you'd react. So it was just a game to you? Yes. Wait, no! What? You are talking about new rules? He said, quickly changing the subject. Ugh, we rotate stuff. Take turns with the groceries and the dishes. If I did it today, the next time it's your turn. Like that. And don't touch my food. Cook your own damn food. I said to him, my voice steady as I stared at him, my gaze unwavering against his blue eyes. You're right, those are solid rules. I do apologize for eating your food. That was an unnecessary part of everything. Thank you. So, truce? I asked tentatively, reaching my hand out for a handshake. Truce, he replied, grasping my hand in his. His hand was firm, the handshake even firmer. An overwhelming warmth began to build inside me just from his touch, but I ignored it. 2 nights later. Our truce was working out really well. The dynamic was better now, and we found ourselves hanging out a lot more often. So, what do you want to do tonight? Dion asked. Let's watch a horror film. This new one just came out. I've been wanting to see it, I replied eagerly. Sure thing. That sounds cool. I connected my phone to the TV, and we sat on the couch together with the snacks on the table as we watched a horror film. Turns out he did not like horror movies. He spent the whole 2 hours jumping at every sound, and I spent the whole 2 hours laughing at him. Oh my gosh, you're scared of horror movies? I asked, gasping for breath as I finally stopped laughing. Why'd you agree to watch it then? You seem to really want to watch it, and I don't want to rock our finally steady boat, he replied softly. I turned to him. He was so close. Thank you. No problem. We stared at each other for a beat, our gazes steady and unwavering. Something was happening, but I didn't know what or if I wanted it to. Before I could say anything, he suddenly stood up. Turning to me, he said, Tonight was fun. Thank you and good night. He left for his room. 1 month later. Dion was late, yet there was no text from him. I paced the living room, glancing routinely at the wall clock, watching as minutes turned into hours. Soon it was 12 a.m., yet still no Dion. I tried calling his line again, but it kept saying switched off. I was getting ready to call his parents when suddenly, frantic, I ran to the door and yanked it open, only to see an unfamiliar face holding a black mass. Are you Tony? The man said, grunting. Yes. Looking closer, I saw the black mass was actually Dion. You brought him back, thanks. No problem. He was lucky to have been coherent enough to say this address. Well, I'll tell him he can take the day off. The man left, leaving me with Dion. Placing him on the couch, I ran to the kitchen, grabbed some water, and made my way back to him. Slapping him awake, I made him drink some. Honestly, Dion, you had me so worried. I was ready to call your parents and tell them I didn't know where you were. Of course you were, he replied, slurring his words. You've always been a snitch, ever since high school. What are you talking about? I asked, confused. Sitting up, Dion looked at me, still clearly drunk, and replied, I never once thought you'd betray us back then. That you betrayed me. You were a snitch and a scaredy cat, and it seems you still are. Back up. I didn't betray anyone. You're denying it? Typical. He stood up, staggering slightly, making his way to his room. Dion, we still need to talk about this. It's very obvious you remember things differently from what I do. Not responding, he entered his room and banged his door shut. In the morning, then, I whispered inside. I entered my room and slumped onto the bed and passed out. I woke up late that day, extremely grateful it was a Saturday. I made my way to the kitchen to find Dion there already. He had an ice pack held to his head. Ooh, what happened there? I asked, my eyes on the bruise forming on his head. I wanted to go to sleep, but I missed the bed, he replied simply. If I were with him this morning, I never would have guessed he came in drunk. Reaching above him, I took a plate from the cabinet above his head. As soon as I did that, I realized I'd made an error because now our bodies were so close to each other that I could feel the body heat radiating from his body. He was so close that I'd only have to move a little and we'd kiss. I couldn't believe that the thought of kissing Dion crossed my mind, and I wasn't immediately disgusted by it. What are you doing? He asked. I suddenly remembered our proximity and how I was practically pressed against him. Sorry, I replied awkwardly, clearing my throat. Just wanted to take this. I showed him the plate. He nodded in response, though the disbelief was still evident in his face. Dion, it seems we need to talk. I began growing serious. What did you mean by what you said? What are you talking about? You'll have to be specific. You called me a snitch last night. What do you mean by that? Sighing gravely, he simply said, I don't want to talk about this. Why the fuck not? I replied. That was a pretty serious accusation you threw at me. Did you think we wouldn't talk about it? He started walking away from me. I followed him. Did you think it would just get brushed under the rug? Answer me, Dion! I yelled. I'd rather not. I have no time for your pretenses. You know, I thought you changed, but now I see you're still the same as you were back then. An untrustworthy person. That's all you are, he replied coldly. Don't talk to me that way. You live here in my house. You do not insult me, I yelled back. Scoffing, he entered his room, banging it in my face. Living with Dion after that was horrible. It was like when he first moved in, except worse. I didn't know what to do. Everything annoyed him now. It was like I was rooming with a toddler. Shut up, I finally snapped one day. He didn't like that one bit, and he got in my face. What did you say? I said shut up, I replied at my wit's end. Make me, he replied daringly. I stared at him, so close to my face I could feel his breath. Before second-guessing myself, I grabbed him and kissed him. He resisted, but it was brief. He pulled me closer to him, his hands in my hair as we kissed each other with the full frustrations that we left unsaid. My hands reached up into his shirt, tracing the hard lines and ridges. I felt him shiver against me. Then he pushed me away. Eyes wide in shock, he bolted to his room, leaving me standing there dazed. The next 3 weeks were spent with both of us avoiding each other. It was clear he didn't want to talk about the kiss, and neither did I. The whole situation had me confused. Did I like Dion now, and did he like me? I decided to seek advice. It came in the form of my friend Mike. He was a very close friend, and I knew he'd help me through this. Mike's expression mirrored how I felt on the inside. He was caught up in everything that had happened between Dion and me. He turned to me as he took a gulp of his beer. What about that high school stuff, he asked. That seems to me like unfinished business. Why are you going off topic, I asked, frustrated. I'm not, though. Your truce was ruined because he accused you of doing something. He didn't say what. You guys need to deal with that first. That's the root of your problem. It's why you guys disconnected 10 years ago. And it's why you guys are fighting even now. I suddenly realized he was right. How could I have forgotten? I bolted up, dropped my share of the bill, turning to Mike. I said, Thanks, Mike. Truly. I got out of the bar and hailed a cab back home. Dion? I called out as I entered. Get out here. We need to talk. About what? He replied, lounging on the couch. High school, I said simply, and I could see from his expression that he knew what I meant. He stared at me for a moment before sighing softly. Then sitting up, he patted the couch. I moved and sat at the spot he just vacated. We were now going to discuss things and hopefully fix them as well. Flashback, 10 years ago, high school. Dion and I were best friends and spent all of our time together. You wouldn't see Dion without seeing me next to him. Soon enough, our closeness developed into something much more. Things came to a head when Dion and I found ourselves locked in the closet because of a prank. Alone together, Dion and I kissed, and it was the most beautiful thing that had ever happened to me. I was so happy that the first person I'd like also felt the same way. But we still had to keep things between us because teenagers were brutal. However, Dion and I spending time together wasn't a strange thing, so no one batted an eye. The day it all started to fall apart, Dion and I snuck under the staircases in between classes. "Won't someone catch us?" I asked breathlessly. "No one will, don't worry," he replied, his self-assured smile plastered on his face as he pulled me closer and kissed me. We kissed for so long, only coming up for air. Dion's hand trailed down my torso and reached for my pants. He started to unbuckle them, but I pulled away immediately. "Not in school," I said, shaking my head. "Come on, no one will see," he replied. I shook my head firmly this time. He sighed but nodded, a bit annoyed. Just then, the bell rang and we quickly came out before anyone saw us. Squeezing my hand, we separated and went to class. I didn't see Dion for the rest of the day, which wasn't weird to me as we had different schedules. But when lunch period came around, I noticed something was off. Students were staring at me, whispering and giggling, looking away if I made eye contact with them. Shrugging it off, I grabbed my lunch and headed to where I saw Dion seated out with his circle. I approached them, but they stood up immediately when they saw me, abandoning their food and walking away as though I wasn't even there. Dion was with them. He acted as though I didn't exist. The rest of the school year followed the same route. My class and most of the school avoided me, and there were nasty rumors passed around about me. About how I was a disease-ridden person because I was gay. Things continued like that till I graduated, and I was glad to be rid of all of them. "Honey, Dion hasn't been coming over. Everything okay?" my mom asked once, worried about how I was indoors a lot. The sound of his name made my heart ache. "We fell out of touch," was my reply, and she never brought him up again. Till now. End of flashback. "You thought I spread those rumors?" I asked, shocked. Yes, which I now realize was stupid of me. No one spreads a rumor that hurts them. "Why didn't you talk to me? You just left me to face all that shit." "I don't know. I feel so stupid. I'm so sorry, Tony." I stared at him for a moment and suddenly burst out laughing. He watched me a bit before joining in. "I'm glad we resolved this." Although things were resolved now and the past was behind us, it took a while before Dion and I got fully comfortable with each other. A month to be exact. Within that time, we slowly reintroduced ourselves to each other, relearned everything we could, and soon enough it was like no time had passed between us. During the month, I'd come to realize that I was in love with him, but I knew I had to do something about it, so I did. Tonight, he and I were seated close together on the couch watching a movie. A non-horror movie. I couldn't seem to concentrate because of just how close he was. "Dion," I asked, "kiss me already." I turned to him, surprised to see him so close. He stared at me, then slowly looked at my lips before staring at me again. He licked his lips and, leaning in slowly, kissed me. Slow and unsure at first, the kiss turned frantic and more heated. I removed his shirt and he in turn removed mine. We break the kiss to yank the shirts over our heads, and we resume kissing. He breaks the kiss and his mouth trails down my body, gently kissing my chest, down my torso, all the way to my pants, which he hurriedly yanks off. We spent that night making up for 10 years of being apart from each other. We lay on the floor in the living room, exhausted out of our minds. "Tony, I love you," he said breathlessly. "I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." "I forgive you," I traced my hands over his torso. "I love you too. Be mine. I want us to make it work this time. Definitely. You really have no other option." It took some time, but we recovered our strength and, realizing there was no time like the present, we told our families to let them know of the new development. "Mom, are the Kaisers there?" "Yes, honey, what's wrong?" "Well, nothing much, Mrs. Emerson. Only that Tony and I are dating now," Dion chimed in. It took a moment for them to process what was said, but when they did, the moms screamed in delight and the dads congratulated us. "We have some news too," Mom said giddily. "Dion, your house has been ready for 3 months now. We just didn't say anything because we wanted you guys to get over yourselves and, kiss and make up, which you actually did." "Wow, Mom, way to meddle. I replied, rolling my eyes as Dion chuckled beside me. I have a wonderful idea. Let's meet up for dinner this weekend, Mom said. All of us. It has been so long. That sounds amazing, Mrs. Emerson. Can't wait, Dion said in reply. All right, everyone, bye, I said. Bye, they chorused in unison. We lay on the bed in my bedroom and fell asleep cuddling each other. The weekend dinner. Everyone sat at the table, enjoying the dinner. The warmth was palpable as I looked at all the people seated around me. My family. I remember when Tony was little, he was so quiet I often found myself looking for him, only to find him seated quietly in a corner, Mom said. I had the same trouble with Dion, except when I found him, he always seemed to be eating things that weren't edible, Mrs. Kaiser responded. The two women laughed softly and continued to trade baby stories. Guys, my sister Abigail said, causing the table to quiet down. I just remembered something. Dion, do you remember Maya? No, why? She had the biggest crush on you in high school, and I guess she felt she could only get to you if she got rid of Tony, so she started spreading rumors about him that he had a lot of STDs he got from sleeping with boys. I honestly should have done more than break her nose. Wait, that's why you were suspended? Now it all makes sense. I tried prying that out of you, and you didn't want to tell me, I replied, laughing. Well, she was right, though. I do like boys. Everyone laughed at that. Dion and I stared at each other. The missing puzzle piece snapped into place. Aha, I could almost hear him say. Dinner soon rounded up. Dion and I said our goodbyes and drove back home in my car. On the ride back, we stared at each other, and unprovoked, we started laughing. And we really were immature back then. Yes, we were, I grinned. A whole lot of things could have been avoided if only we'd spoken to each other. Yep, teenagers are so damn stubborn, I replied with a laugh. Thank goodness we got over ourselves. It did take a lot of outside interference. Remind me to buy Mike a bottle of whiskey. He deserves it. We should also get something for everyone else. I honestly can't get over the fact that they came up with such an elaborate plot. Right? They should write a movie script, he replied, amused. We got back and decided to open a bottle of wine in celebration of our reunion. The night ended with us tangled up in bed, secure in each other's arms and love. Conclusion. Dion asked me to move in with him, to which I readily agreed. With the help of our parents, we sold our houses and got a new one close to our families. We dated for 3 more years, and in the 3rd year, Dion arranged a surprise party for me where he proposed to me in front of everyone, and I accepted happily. The wedding happened a year later with all our friends and families by our sides. Dion and I went on to build better lives for ourselves, and even mastered the art of communication. The end. Have you ever lost love because of miscommunication? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become a part of our Rainbow Force and stay wholesome!